Welcome back, everybody, to Lust is Boring. In previous episodes, we've talked about how to break free from pornography, or what if you're in a relationship with someone who's struggling with pornography? How do you effectively minister to that person to encourage them to break free? But what if you're the person in the relationship who's not looking at the pornography? What about the ministry that you deserve? There's such a thing called sexual betrayal trauma. And a lot of times it's overlooked in this whole discussion. It's like, well, no, the whole focus needs to be on fixing that other person, but not really working on the wounds of the person who feels betrayed by them. And so today, we've got a wonderful guest that's going to just open up her heart and her story to us on how she's found healing, the resources that have helped her. So whether you're in that place or you've been there in the past, or maybe you're the one struggling with pornography, to realize the importance of the other person's story, today we're going to dive all into that. Before we do, though, I want to announce the winners of the raffle that we did on YouTube for all the new subscribers there. We said we'd give away a free copy of the book St. John Paul II, the Great, and then also Theology of the Body in 1 hour, and If You Really Loved Me. And the names that were drawn out of the hat for the winners of the giveaway were, one, Andrew Studebaker, secondly, Julie Sarnowski, and then lastly, the YouTube username was Tinawati. And so if you're one of those three, all you got to do is email us at support@chastity.com. They already know your names. Tell them you won the giveaway, and they'll ship you those books for free. And so if you missed the giveaway, you can still get all the resources we have at chastity.com for $3 or less in bulk if you want to share those resources. Also, if you want more free stuff, make sure to click the link below for Hallow. It's just hallow.com/lustisboring to try out that app for a month for free. And they've got a rosary novena that they just started. It's a 54-day rosary novena. Join us. If you're struggling with something, you really want to find some extra graces, there's about 30,000 people doing this rosary novena together through the Hallow app. And so you can click the button below, try it out for free. And that's just the tip of the iceberg of all the awesome stuff they've got going there. And also, we want to thank those listeners that have supported us on Patreon. You have no idea what a huge blessing and gift it is that you're supporting our family and our ministry to help us keep doing these podcasts. So if you want to become a patron, join that community. We give you all kinds of free swag and exclusive benefits, early access, free things. Just go to patreon.com/Jason Everett. You can give literally any amount you want, $3 a month, 30 a month, whatever you want, but all that helps to go support this family and this ministry. Now, on to today's topic of sexual betrayal trauma. One of the things about today's guest that I love is when I look back at the 50-something episodes we've done so far on the podcast, a lot of my favorite episodes were people that you might not have heard of before. I think of Caitlin Zumwalt, the interview we did on Should Christian Women Wear Bikinis? Manny Gonzalez on practicing chastity as a college student who experiences same-sex attractions. Or what about the one we did with Rachel Geiger on idolizing virginity? I mean, these were some of my favorite episodes. And so today we've got someone you might not have heard before, maybe not on the podcast, but a listener of the podcast, I've been corresponding with for a little while in her life. And she sent me an email, and in it, there was this paragraph to me that was just gold of what it's like to go through this experience of sexual betrayal trauma. And I want to share just that paragraph with you, and then we're just going to dive into this together, word by word, opening this up in today's episode. Here's what she said. She said, being in these relationships sometimes where, you're trying to work through this, the partner's trying to break free from pornography, you love them, they love you. She said, sometimes it's literally hell on earth. You feel crazy and you're constantly waiting to be shattered again. It's flight or fight only makes sense if you're running from a tiger, but what if it feels like you live with the tiger? Instead of allowing wounds to heal, you get lost in trying to prevent new ones. These women need solid boundaries, adequate community support. They need to know that they're not crazy, that they're seen, that they deserve to be cherished, honored, and protected by themselves and by others, that their partner's actions are not a reflection of them, and that their healing is of utmost importance. It might not save the relationship, but it will surely save them. And so, to me, that was just gold. So many women, I think, need to be heard in this and validated in their experience. And so to join us to discuss this is Magdalena Terlecka. So, Magdalena, thank you for just joining us on last minute to hop on the podcast today.
Hey, I'm very thankful to be on this podcast, and I'm even more thankful that this topic is brought up, and that just hearing the the terms of betrayal trauma in the Catholic community just give me more hope that people can more easily find the resources that they need, because I guess I'm part of like a big church, and there's no one that I know that's part of my church who's also going through it. And out of like 10,000 parishioners, I'm the only one. It's just that's not possible.
Yeah.
So I just, I'm so thankful just to be on here and that this topic is talked about. Yeah.
Yeah. And to be honest, I mean, I've been in the circuit doing these kinds of talks, but I don't think I've ever even heard that term until like the last 6 months or so. But I think that women who are going through it just hear the term and they're like, yes, that's it. That's what I feel. Finally, someone's speaking to my heart. You know, for those who haven't been familiar with you, you know, what is your story, so to speak, of like, how has this impacted your life? You know, and what is sexual betrayal trauma, or just betrayal trauma in general? So if you could maybe open up and share to the extent that you feel comfortable of how this has impacted your own life.
The story kind of started with my boyfriend, who I've been dating for 4.5, nearing 5 years. He told me before we started dating that there was a porn issue. And I remember feeling disgusted, but not knowing why. And I just kind of hid that somewhere. I didn't talk to anybody about it. I was also battling an eating disorder at that time. So I think I was in the habit of just not tending to my feelings, just being like, oh, that one's too hard. I'm just not going to go there. So it wasn't until a year later that I would start talking about it. But in that year, there was one friend that he had where there was a lot of a complete lack of boundaries, and then it became a secret, like friendship kind of thing. And that was like the start, I guess not even the start. That really hurt. I started feeling very insecure and started feeling like my anxiety that I was experiencing was my fault. And I did feel like I didn't know really what to do. And it was a year later that I started talking about the like porn issue with a therapist, and she validated it to a point, but that's all that happened. And then I came across a blog which I really related to, and I was like, that's what I'm feeling. And I'm a resourceful person, so like when I start looking for resources, I just find so many. And thankfully I was able to find that resource, which then gave me the courage to tell my boyfriend, like, I need to talk to you about something. And I sat him down and I was like, hey, this like really hurts me when this happens. And this was at a point where I was like, all I need to do is just talk to him, and then he'll change, and then we'll be fine. And at that point, nothing had changed. And then I was talking with a friend of mine. I wasn't planning on bringing this topic up, but somehow, God is good, it came into conversation, and she gave me the courage to be like stern, like, you need to do something about it. And that's when he was willing to do everything, and it's like, what else can I do? Like, anything you want, I'll do it. And I was like, cool, like, now it's done. We're done the issue. We have Covenant Eyes. We're good. I didn't know that the Covenant Eyes safeguards were not up. So when I thought they were being used, it was not being used. For the next like year, it was like either no safeguards or like some safeguards with a loophole. So, and during this time, I was having like nightmares of like my boyfriend being physically engaged with other women. And I was like, why is this happening? I don't understand. He told me about one relapse to try to make me think that it's just only been one, but it was daily things going on. So that happened. And the last, I guess, he eventually got into SA, which is Sexaholics Anonymous. And that was the start of him not acting out sexually, which is like, not using like the websites he would use before and not engaging in masturbation. So, yeah, and I think that's about the time I found like a 12-step group and I was trying that. And I found women, which was nice to just find other women in the same thing. But it was also kind of horrifying to hear how big sex addiction is and how bad it gets when it's not taken seriously. And just seeing these ordinary women and hearing their stories, and I'm like, if I saw these women walking down the street, I would never guess like what they're experiencing. So I found some community there, but it didn't really help me. And I found that the group that my boyfriend was in didn't encourage him to be like as honest as he needs to be in this space. But he says that he would recommend it to people who are just starting off. I don't really have anything good to say about it. But yeah, fast forward, things were not working. I took a month break. I found Bloom for Women, and that's where I finally was able to start dropping my levels of trauma and get educated and validated and feel like, okay, like I'm actually not crazy. Like this has been what's happening. There's been so much like lying and denial and just like gaslighting, table turning, like all these kind of things that were happening. And I just didn't have words to describe. Like I just felt that it's wrong. I know what I'm saying is true, but he's looking at me and telling me straight that like there's no problem. And that's kind of messed up to just experience. I guess I didn't think that people could lie to this extent. So I was like in complete denial and disbelief. And I was like, that there's no way that someone who's supposed to love me would do that, right? Right. But addiction is quite the demon. So yeah, that's what I found happens. Then we had that break. I found Bloom, and then he started going to a brother group called Path for Men, which seems to be a good group as far as like helping you understand what your partner is going through. So that seems to be like a plus for them. And then we went through this process called a disclosure, which is when usually it's like a therapeutic disclosure, and then the partner discloses everything that's been happening. And then following, there's like an impact letter and things like that. And I could clarify that what these things are later. And so I had 19 pages of questions typed up, and just like these things that were just ruminating in my mind for like all those years of like, what is going on? I don't understand. And so he answered them all. And that was quite the lengthy process. We didn't do it with a therapist, which I don't know, everyone does recommend to do it with a therapist. We didn't. But yeah, it was quite a lot to take in. And it started with like his childhood to now, so that I can see the bigger picture. Mm-hmm. And that I can see like, wow, it actually has nothing to do with me. This has been going on for a long time. This isn't because like he's just choosing to like be like unloving. So yeah, and then there's like so many things in between, but that brings us to like today, where we are doing both our separate programs and then coming together to learn how to like move through all of this baggage, because it is a lot, and there was a lot of trust just demolished, and it's definitely not easy. So yeah, I'm thankful for where we are now. Everything else has been so hard. And I'm thankful for everything like in between, where the moments that God has just gave me someone that led me to something, and that led me to all these things that like just led me to so many resources online. But Yeah, so I guess I, I feel a little scatterbrained, but yeah,
No.
that's kind of the essence.
No, there's a lot of great nuggets in there. And one of the themes that it seems like in your journey that was kind of like a watershed moment is advocating for yourself to do the research, to come to this revelation that you're actually not crazy. Because I would imagine when you start going through this stuff and the other person's gaslighting or whatever, that invalidation of your experience of the trauma, it's not just like salt in the wounds, but it causes you to doubt yourself. Like, well, maybe I am the problem. Maybe I am overreacting. Maybe I am oversensitive, and then the process of just gradually kind of peeling away all these layers of denial that we pile on ourselves of like, okay, yeah, maybe I'm out of touch with reality. The process takes a while. So in your experience, I mean, you use terms like table turning, gaslighting. I would imagine this is probably a very common reason why women doubt their intuitions in responding to this whole thing, that they start to think that they're asking for too much. But as I look at it in a relationship, to me a healthy relationship is kind of like buying a car. When you buy a car, if the dealer is trying to make you feel like you're asking for some premium upgrades when all you want is what's standard, and they're like, oh, you want tires on the car too? I mean, that's a lot to ask. I mean, that's going to be a couple extra thousands. You're like, look, I'm not asking for like sunroofs and glittery paint and all this stuff. Like, I just want tires. If you're being treated by a car dealer like standard options are upgrades, you're probably at the wrong dealership to begin with. But so
Mhm.
they're causing you to doubt yourself. So maybe spend a minute, if you would, just kind of explain what is table turning? Like, what does gaslighting look like? And how does that cause you to doubt your intuitions? And how do you walk out of that fog to realize that your feelings are a barometer of the truth, not an indication that you're out of touch with reality?
Yeah, that's a lot of good stuff that you had just said right there. And I think this is where support is like absolutely essential because you need to hear from other people that, like, no, you're not crazy. Sometimes in the moment where you are so run on emotions, it's hard to think logically, and to have other people remind you that, like, no, wanting someone to be honest is not a lot. It's just the basic foundation of any kind of relationship. Wanting to someone wanting to be someone's like one and only, isn't that the essence of a relationship? Like, that's just these like things that, like, you're right, it's just you do question yourself, and like, am I asking for too much? Is this Am I just being that like crazy girlfriend, like the word terms like psycho, and I don't know. But anyways, that all comes up, and table turning is one of the ways that to avoid confronting like what's going on. It seems like if I say like, hey, like it really hurt me, or maybe I shouldn't give examples. I don't know. Okay, but table turning is a way to turn the problem around onto me when the problem is not me, to somehow avoid confronting it, dealing with it. It seems that in addiction, like when someone is active in their addiction, that they're doing everything to protect the addiction. So whether or not they're doing it consciously or unconsciously, I don't know. But
Yeah.
that and like gaslighting, just completely denying that things are real. There's one resource that I would definitely recommend for these kind of things because it goes into depth of like what that actually looks like, and like knowing these kind of terms will help decrease the fog, because then you learn how to hear something and be like, ooh, I know that that is denial. I know that that is this.
Mm-hmm.
And the less fog you are in, the better you can make decisions for yourself. And I think it's definitely easy to when you are sure of something and someone else just completely denies it, then, and that's supposed to be someone that's like really close to you that you trust well, or things like that, like when they say no, then you're like, well, this person should have my best interest at mind, right?
Mhm.
Like, okay, then, well, they're denying it, so maybe I'm just like making a scene, or maybe I'm just making things up, or maybe it's just all in my head, because you just I guess you just believe that people have your best interests in mind, and that could very well be true. But then when an addiction is like in play, it it hijacks who that person is.
Yeah.
They're in so much shame, likely, and um, they're scared of what will happen if like the truth is confronted, and there's so many things like going underneath that. So
Yeah.
um, it's not like just this monster. So it is easy to just question yourself, and especially when you don't have that support that's telling you that you are not crazy, that is completely normal to like feel crazy when crazy things are happening around you, but you're not the crazy one. When you don't know these terms, when you don't have words for experience, I find that it's more challenging
Yeah.
to just be like, well, I don't know what it is. And yeah. So again, that like that support and that group just to helping you just see your reality,
Mhm.
to face it. And sometimes I think that it's easier to go into denial yourself than to be like, no, he's actually lying right now.
Yeah.
So there's that like denial of the other person, and your own denial, that you're just like, okay, well, you just can pretend that it's just not happening
Yeah.
anymore, or it's not happening, it's not for real.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, it makes a lot of sense to try to take an active effort to learn the vocabulary of dysfunctional communication skills, of just to be able to identify, okay, that's gaslighting, that is denial, that is deflection, that is table turning, this is this, because then you realize in the midst of all this craziness, like, okay, I'm observing what's going on. I'm not simply absorbing what's happening. I'm able to stand emotionally at a distance a little bit and analyze it effectively. Because one of the things you mentioned is that, if an addict, is locked in on this addiction, they're protecting the addiction. So they don't really have any time to protect you. They're protecting their ego, their shame, the addiction. I mean, that's the thing that needs to get protected. And so you got to get lost to the wayside. But you had mentioned in your email that these women deserve to be protected, but you said by themselves and by others. I think a lot of times we think it's like the other person's job to protect us. And that's true. I mean, in a healthy relationship, there is transparency, there's honesty, there's fierce loyalty. And so the other is protecting you. But more foundational even to that is protecting yourself. So what does that look like? Like what do healthy boundaries look like when a couple is actually struggling with this? Like, how do you put boundaries in place that'll help to protect you? What were things that you found to be helpful? Like, okay, if we're going to move forward, this needs to be set into place and you need to be answerable to this and make sure you're doing that. What were some boundaries that you found to be helpful so that you could protect yourself in the relationship?
Yeah, we had quite, I guess, like if an outsider was looking in, like the boundaries would seem like really intense, but it matched the degree of wreckage um, that was in the relationship. So I think that's helpful to keep in mind in terms of like boundaries in the relationship. But I guess before I even go there, I've been learning that boundaries are a way to protect your values. So knowing your values seems to be like crucial for this. Like if I value spending time with my family, okay, then I think like what gets in the way of spending time with my family? And then I work with that and be like, okay, well, I'm going to I don't want to engage in that because that gets in the way of my value. And there, I'm finding the importance of boundaries with myself. That like 11 p.m., I'm going to bed because I'm going through a lot of healing, and sleep has been very hard, and I'm trying to help my body recoup. Like maybe that's not the word, heal itself from all like intense like stress that it's been through. I value being present with people. So when I'm with people, I do everything I can to not be on my phone while they're like talking or things like that, or things that like, what do I value? And if I value my well-being, what gets in the way of my well-being? Okay, I know that certain conversations, certain types of conversations really get in the way of my peace. Okay, I'm going to remove myself from those conversations if they can't be redirected, if like it seems not possible, at least at the moment, to have a respectful dialogue. I just will not entertain that. And one of the things that my support group coach in Bloom was saying, that sometimes you need to keep taking distance until there's no more distance left to take, if that person is not willing to cooperate. But there's a lot of things that happens before that you can like try. And things like, if God is really important to me, then how much time am I spending with him? And what's getting in the way of like me spending time with God? Because like God is so important in this process of healing, because there's a lot of lies that come at you from society and everything, but from this situation, and knowing the truth to dispel that is so important. So I think what I'm seeing with these boundaries is that to know my values, and it's almost like I'm protecting my values. And that's the way that boundaries work. And so with a partner, it's like you set up boundaries together that like, we care about this relationship. So how can we protect this this unifying bond that we are trying to create? And I think that can come for like the kinds of conversations we have, that sometimes my boyfriend has been like, I'm not sure that you're ready to talk right now. And even though that makes me mad to hear, it's like, it's okay, right? Something like that. Or I don't feel like I'm being respected right now, so I'm going to leave this physically, or just hang up the phone or something like that. There's like, it's always like protecting what you value. So I'm not an expert on boundaries, but this is what I have learned so far. Yeah.
Did you guys end up putting specific boundaries in terms of cell phone usage, computer usage? Like, okay, moving forward,
Yes.
you know, I need what type of things did you guys set in place there so that there'd be transparency and honesty there?
Yeah. So he has had Covenant Eyes on his phone. And for some time I was receiving, at some point I wanted to receive the, what is it called? The reports.
Yep.
But I don't think that means like that should be the case for everybody. Yep. This is simply what I decided to do. And we were doing daily check-ins where he's sharing like what has happened in his day, and like if there were things that were, I guess if he was in scenarios that faced with temptation, like how did it go, and like if something came up, like why, things like that. So we're trying to actually reevaluate those kind of check-ins, so they encompass more, that they encompass like, how is he physically, how is he emotionally, and so that I can be sharing that kind of stuff too. So he wasn't attending co-ed meetings. There was specific issues within those co-ed meetings that had come up when he disclosed everything. What else? He was really like if there was some kind of change that he wanted to make, to like just keep me in the loop so that I'm not finding things out by accident. Movies and videos and things, those were things that I guess on his end have been out. And like these kind of things, they're not to stay like forever. That's not the point. The point is to just give time for each party to heal, the relationship to heal, so that there's that trust can be built. And I don't think no one likes to have like a lot of no's, but anyways, so there was like things like that. I'm trying to think of more that we did. Um, oh, I guess like the contact with women, like one on one, was very limited. Um, which again, it does all sound like crazy if the context of what has happened is not taken into consideration, and this is not the end goal. The end goal is to just be able to be at a place where I just know that he's gonna do what he needs to do to take care of the relationship. He knows that I'm going to do the same, and we both know that we care about this relationship and that we're in it and that we're willing to sacrifice what is needed to protect the relationship.
Yeah.
So,
No.
yeah.
No, I mean that's super helpful because I think that when you think of the covenantized stuff, if a person's unwilling to be transparent with regard to technology, I mean, what are you really building on? I mean, if a guy balks at that and be like, "Oh no, you can't see my covenantized support. No, you can't look at my phone at the drop of a hat. I can't trust you to look at my app or my internet history. I can't entrust you with that information." Well, it's like, what are we building on here? I mean, it's almost like let's build a castle. Well, where should we put it? Well, let's put it on that white fluffy cloud in the middle of the sky. That'll be a great foundation for our castle. It's like, well, no, that thing's going to crash down to the earth unless it's on a solid foundation, which is trust and honesty and transparency, which again are not premium upgrades to a relationship. Like you can build nothing if you don't have that underneath the relationship. And what I've found, and many of the women that I've spoken to, and you alluded to this before, when their partners are wrestling with this, they almost start by pointing the finger at themselves first, of like, maybe I'm not skinny enough. Maybe I'm not sexually available enough. Maybe I'm not pretty enough. And if I were only more, or if I just wasn't so much, effort, then he wouldn't have to turn to another for satisfaction, for excitement. Maybe the fault is in me. And one of the things I always try to point out to these women is like, look, trust me, you cannot compete with these pornographic fantasies because the pornographic fantasies themselves cannot compete with each other. It's not as if a guy finds one pornographic model and stays faithful to her. I mean, it's mental polygamy where he's on to the next one every 45 seconds. And so the problem is not that their partner doesn't look a certain way. The problem is in the heart of the one who has an addiction. And so, especially I think if a woman has wrestled with eating disorders and things like that, she probably starts to feel, okay, I got to get control over this. How do I get control over it? I'm going to count my macros. I'm going to count my calories. I'm going to limit how much I eat. That'll give me some sense of getting control of this bigger issue. So maybe speak for just a moment of the heart of these women who are thinking that their partner's actions are somehow a reflection of them.
I totally get it. Like, I know very well what that place is like. And I remember my lowest point was when the acting out was like still going on full throttle behind my back, and I just felt like absolute scum. And it's not even just like you hear these messages in society outside of these scenarios that like you need this product so that you can look better, you need this, you need that, and the types of clothes that are most commonly sold are for like just one type of body, and like all of these kind of things. And there's like such a focus on the physical appearance, and this kind of wound like really hits to the core of like your sexuality, everything, like to like your very being. So it absolutely makes sense. And some professionals like even will some professionals will say that it like they'll blame that the wife was like too mean or too whatever. Like you just have to so like these lies are coming at you from so many angles, so it makes sense, but it doesn't mean that they're true at all.
Mhm.
And that I have found that this experience brought up all of my insecurities, everything that I had like just like tried to push aside and pretend it didn't exist. This just brought everything up to the surface, like to my face. So I can't be like, I don't see it. It's just like right in my face, because it kept being like, I'm not enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not whatever. And there was just a complete lack of self-acceptance. So I find that sometimes I found in my life that it just it was like wounds on top of wounds that were never healed. And so this was like a time to dig deep and find out, well, what does Christ think about me? What does the Bible say about who I am? And I saw the more time, like as I was coming out of my own addiction and this traumatic experience, I saw how much lies I came to believe and how quickly I would believe them and just not challenge them. And when I started having suicidal thoughts, that's when I was like just leaning to every parcel of truth I can. I would read devotionals, like the same pages, like again and again and again. I stopped going on Instagram, and I stopped a lot of things so that I could just know the truth of who I am, because everything that I just believed before just did not, it wasn't serving me. It was making me hate myself. And I was like, maybe there's something more. Maybe I actually deserve more. Maybe this is all like bogus. And I think it takes a long time to just chisel away at those lies,
Mhm.
and that it is absolutely possible. And I think it, at Bloom, I swear I'm not trying to like sell Bloom, but like this is where the program I'm in, like my coach kept saying like that beauty is physical, emotional, spiritual. And I was just like, that sounds so dumb. But I was intrigued because I was like, if that's true, that's really going to help me out. And so that just stayed in my mind. And I started like over time, like seeing what she was talking about. And then I saw a video, a friend sent it to me, of a guy talking about how, like the mirror only shows you part of who you are. Like you don't get to see like how, like other people get to see how your face lights up when you're talking about that one thing that you love, or how your smile just like brings like light to the room, or like these little things that you just forget about yourself. Like, and it's not just that. So I would see it here and there, and I was also looking for truth. So I would see these like truths like spaced out, and I'm like, okay, like I see how it is so much more than what I am like physically. And so I just encourage you to challenge those thoughts, to find the truth in God's word. And you can start by getting rid of all the accounts on social media that make you feel like poo. Like you don't need them. And like find people that keep bringing you back to God. And there's some days that I just challenge myself, like, okay, I've been looking too much in the mirror. Like today we're not looking in the mirror, because then I feel like when I was camping, there's no mirrors, and I was like, wow, I suddenly feel better about myself, because like I don't really care, because I can't even care. I'm just like, okay, well, this feels comfy, so I'm going out in this. Like,
Yeah. Mhm.
um, so yeah, it's just it's a battle, and you matter, and you are loved, and just I guess I feel like I'm getting emotional about this, because I'm like, I just get it so much, and this is what I hope that God is calling me to do in this area, that like for women to know that they're worth so much more. That I've even been able to see like the kinds of things that I was choosing to wear. In the back of my mind, it was still like so that I could be enough, so that I could be sexy, so that I could be this, blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, why? Like, it's like those actions were fueling the lies. So, and this all sounds like a lot of things, but you can start today with just one thing, with just, instead of getting angry at yourself for, I don't know, like, wanting to boil an egg and then like forgetting that you actually have to turn on the stove for that to happen, and just laugh at it. Like, I guess these little things to help you know that you are totally okay just the way you are. So I think that, and like learning about addiction, learning about what it's like, I think all that stuff helps to see the broader picture of what is actually going on. I guess in a sense, like educationally, put in truth. Your worth, put in truth. Like, it's just like bring truth to the picture of what is actually happening, how addiction works, what's happening in the brain, all these kinds of things. It's definitely a lot of work, but you could start with just one thing, just one, and go there. Yeah.
Yeah. So just I think the one theme there is just that you actually deserve to be cherished. It's not something that you have to earn. Like if you were just this much
Yeah.
skinnier or this much bigger on that part of your body, then you'd get that validation. But so keep working, keep doing those squats and keep jogging more and eating less, and then you'll be cherished. I mean, it's like chasing a carrot that's always going to be 2 feet away from you. And it doesn't matter how fast you run, you're not going to get it until you realize that you already deserve to be cherished. And the problem
Yeah.
isn't in you. The problem is in the person who has that inability to cherish you. And so this is, I think, why you said in that initial paragraph that the person's healing, not the addict's healing, but like when you're in the relationship, the healing of you is of the utmost importance. And I would imagine in your journey through all this, you probably came along some bad advice in terms of how to deal with this when it hits relationships. So like, well, try this, or like you said at the beginning, well, just forgive him, and while he's one day sober, that we're making the right direction, and we tend to almost look for any signs of hope that we can to justify stuff. Like, oh, we'll put up with this a little longer because we had a good day this month, and when I asked him, how are you doing with it? Oh, I'm good. I haven't looked at it in a while. And then you press a little further, like, well, how long's it been? He's like, well, I haven't looked since lunchtime. It's like, okay, that wasn't really what I was shooting for. That we need to look at this, that what's the trajectory of this? Like, are we actually making progress, or are we just making excuses? And so the goal needs to be more than just sobriety, right? Like, that's not like the end goal of like, hey, I haven't looked at porn in a year, I'm good. Like, other healing has to happen here. And so could you maybe share, if your own experience, like what are some of the just the bad nuggets of advice that you picked up along the way for how to manage this inside of a relationship for those who actually choose to stay? I mean, I'll be honest, I tell a lot of people, like, if this is going on, just tell the dude, like, look, pick your pixels or pick your person. You can't have both. Make up your mind, because this is cheating. It is infidelity. I will not accept it. If you can't get over this and you're not making serious progress, then go take time for healing. Don't expect me to mother you and be your messiah through this entire process. But every relationship is unique, right? I mean, some people, the guy sees the problem. He's making progress. He used to fall every day. Now it's once every 2 months. Like, we're going in the right direction. But, along this whole battle, struggle, what are some of the nuggets of dumb advice that you heard along the way, or maybe even that you tried out and you realized, okay, that was not helpful, that made things worse?
I'm thinking of all the stories of other women that I've heard, but for me, I know other women have heard like things like, just have more sex with him, as if like, which is the most ridiculous thing, because like, if you were dealing with someone who had a drug addiction, it wouldn't be like, go do coke with him. So that makes absolutely no sense. But I think things that were very quick fixy, that like, you need to leave him or you need to stay, like something that was just like, just solve it now and you'll be good. Because I didn't really see what was happening. I remember coming across a book, which in this betrayal community, this author is very well hated. And or perhaps his content. We don't know him. His content has been very misleading. That guys are just visual. Whenever that's used in a way that sounds like it's an excuse, so we just have to understand that like guys are just visual and that's just the way it is and period. It's like there's no hope for the guy there. There's no hope for us. Like actually nobody's winning with that kind of content. So I guess like part of me was just like really like if this is true, I want to be single forever. But part of me was just like, there's more. There has to be more than just like, oh, it is what it is. Yeah. And like having authors like make unnecessary descriptions in books to like what kinds of women, like what their bodies looked like, what kinds of women would like tempt them. I'm like this is very inappropriate in this book. This is supposed to help me heal, not give me more like triggering things.
Yeah, no, I mean, just not to jump in, but to jump in. I remember hearing a lot of people recommend to me years ago the Every Young Man's Battle series, Every Young Woman's Battle, and, very popular in evangelical circles. But I mean, to be honest and frank, I'm sure the intentions of the author were good, but it was not chaste. I mean, it would almost seem like they were trying to make purity sexy. And, where the author's like, I remember seeing this image and the woman would look like this and she was doing that. And I'm reading this. I'm like, I don't need those images in my brain to help me be pure. And, the books for the girls, like Every Young Woman's Battle, it'd be like, well, this term refers to a woman is doing this with it. And I'm like, well, do we really need to be going into this with like 15, 16-year-old girls to help them wear their chastity ring? Like, I don't think it's necessary. And so you might have approaches that are abstinence-based, but truly lack purity. And, in the process of trying to heal the wound, I think you're inadvertently infecting it. And so I'm glad you're, I don't have a problem calling out names and stuff with, approaches that I disagree with. There might be a lot of good stuff there, but you got to be careful just handing this stuff out thinking, hey, this is real popular in these circles, just hand it out. Because once I finally read that, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to recommend this one anymore. Good intentions, but I think the approach is lacking. But so sorry for jumping in, but wanted to get that out there.
I'm very glad that you brought that up because that's actually the book I was thinking about.
Okay.
So yeah, and I guess the biggest thing that concerns me is the fact that nobody wins. Because if someone is still like stuck in addictive behaviors in like super like just like a lustful way of living, like they're not winning. Yeah. They're not winning. Their partners, like their relationship with their partner is like crashing. If they have a family, then that's affected. Like nobody's winning. So I think even though it could seem like, oh, they have an excuse to stay in their denial, nobody wins with denial. Like it's like we win when we're seeking freedom, when we're seeking the path of love and purity. Like that's when there's like winning. So yeah, definitely, like if you're coming across content that's like weird, reach out to Just Never and like double check, or someone that like a Catholic speaker that you do trust, and be like, this sounds weird to me, like what do you think about it? Because perhaps maybe you're right, maybe it is weird and it's like not okay. So there's a Christian speaker who is like calling out like a bunch of different authors, and she wrote a book that was helping rewrite these lies, and did a 20,000 person survey to like figure out like what people have believed along these years with these kind of stuff. So I think it's moving in the right direction in terms of like, okay, we're calling out the content that's not good. We can help us narrow down with the content that is more helpful. So yeah, that's like that kind of content, like bad advice, like again, quick fixes, like, oh, just forgive, like giving me the end result without helping me. Like how do I do that? Like I'm in so much pain. I don't know how. Like I don't. It just feels like beyond me. Like I guess all those moments that like the person who I was talking to or reaching out to, like, couldn't sit with me in my darkness and be like, I'm here, I'm gonna walk with you step by step.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, one thing I'd throw in there too is, when a woman wants to find a counselor, you got to find a solid one, because a lot of people, even sometimes within the church, are given some really not the most sound advice when it comes to dealing with this. I mean, you'll hear people even say, well, as you said, guys are just visual, so just loosen up a little bit. Maybe use a little bit of porn in the bedroom, in your marriage, just instead of like him having that by himself. Watch it with him, spice things up a little bit, relax a little bit, and then, maybe he'll be more interested and engaged in you. But to me, I mean, that's like, let's put out this fire. Here's some gasoline. Just pour it on. You just put enough gasoline on. We're going to get rid of that fire. It's like, It always makes me remember, I think I've used this anecdote before, but I heard a talk by Dr. James Dobson from Focus on the Family. This must have been like 15 years ago. And in this talk, he talked about a woman who was married with kids, and her husband started having an inappropriate kind of micro affair with this other lady, but she didn't really want to put her foot down about it, because she figured if I do, maybe he's going to pick her, then her family will be split apart. So I just got to hold things together. That's my job, hold the things together. And so the husband saw her permissiveness about this and be like, oh, well, I guess I can get closer to this other woman because she ain't going to leave me. And he started to have an outright affair with her. The wife found out about this, but again, I got to be the one to hold things together. I can't be too firm on this, because I just got to take the bullets. I'm going to take I'm going to be crucified for the sake of this family. I'll put up with the affair. And then he started bringing the mistress around the house. And the wife, again, I don't want to, ruffle the feathers. And it came to the point where the other woman was actually sharing a bed with them, was allowed into their own bedroom, and the wife still wouldn't speak up. And any woman hears that like, woman, like, are you nuts? How could you get to that point? But I think, how is pornography any different? I mean, if you're allowing porn in your marriage, in your bedroom, to spice things up, I mean, if a guy has to turn to another to be interested in you, it shows that it's not you he was ever interested in, but simply the arousal of himself. He's only worshiping his own desires, not having reverence for his own bride. And so, to me, this is not the solution. Bring porn into the bedroom. This is not solution. Well, just be sexier. Just wear more, then you'll keep up with these women. It's like, no. Obviously there's nothing wrong within marriage being, sexually attractive toward the other person. That's fine. But it's got to be done with, I think, the key word of just reverence. Is it really reverent to demand these things of someone who finds them degrading? Or is it that there's enough safety between you where you feel safe in having fun and expressing it in that way? But when there's lust there, the woman is rightfully guarded toward the guy. And to tell her to just be more sexually available, for her, could be the worst possible advice, because she's like, okay, I'll throw myself out there for the guy while just feeling more used and taken for granted, when what she really needs to be most available for him is for him to grow in purity heart, so she knows that he's looking at her with reverence. Because if he would only fight that battle and win it, then she would be more responsive to him than ever before. And so the solution isn't just making her keep up with the porn stars, but him having the love to trash that stuff so he can be free to love her. So does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're saying that she feels more used. One of the things I felt a lot was just disposed of. And I don't think I'm the only person that feels that in those scenarios. And it makes sense, because essentially, it's use. Like, if you're in addiction, you're just like using one thing, using another, and we can use this even like outside of addiction. We can, one of the things you're talking about in one of your podcasts was or I think maybe it was you or Dr. Edward Tree that were talking about emotional lust, emotional fantasies, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, so that's another way of like using. And so of course people are going to feel disposed of if that's what's happening. Mm-hmm. And it's silly to like, it's totally, I don't even know what to say. Like, I guess it's a form of like denial, compartmentalizing that, like, oh, in this area of my life, I'm going to do this, but in this area, like, I'll be good. Yeah. Which it only stands up for so long, because like, you're a whole person. Like, what I do here affects how I like I guess how I think of people in my head affects how I talk to people.
Yeah.
And even if I don't say anything rude, if I have like a prejudice against them, they could probably feel it
Yeah.
because like it just comes. I can't explain it, but yeah. So it's really silly to think that we're just these like boxed beings
Mm-hmm.
that we could just do whatever we want and it just doesn't affect anybody. And so like it's like if we don't, I guess if I don't know how to um, like the problem is like how I look at the world, how I look at people. Like, am I looking at them with like reverence and love and like at awe of like what God created, or am I looking at them like how can I use this person? And I guess that's not the thought that would come up, but it's just like
Yeah.
um, that's yeah, that's definitely that makes absolutely no sense. And I think that women can be in the position of that woman that you gave, the example that you gave. Maybe she's getting guilt tripped from like people around her saying that like you should be like forgiving, you should insert like fill in the blank.
Yeah.
And there's a woman, Christian woman with a ministry, Fight for Love. The ministry's name is Fight for Love, and she has a book by the same name. Her name is Rosie McKinney, and her whole book is focused on like the biblical foundations of why women need to speak up. Not that like oh, it's okay. It's like no, actually they need to say no to these kind of scenarios. They need to say no to the ugly that is happening in their marriage.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good read for. I haven't read the book, but the podcast, like I've listened to so many episodes. So if you're, I guess, worried about like, well, is it biblical for me to like, is it within like my faith to be able to be like, no, this is not okay. Can I have boundaries? Like those kind of things. I think women do struggle there too. And yeah, it makes sense because sometimes people speak to matters that they don't really understand.
Yeah. Yeah.
But to your question with the counselor,
Yeah. Two last questions before I let you go. One, when is enough enough? You know, at what point does a girlfriend or even a wife say, okay, we've been down this road, we're not getting anywhere. I'm tired of kind of this breadcrumbing in the relationship where, you know, I get a little bite here. I'm starving to death, but there's just barely enough to sustain me. You know, while the woman might be thinking if she's dating or engaged, like, look, my biological clock is ticking. I want to get married. I want to have kids, but I don't feel safe with you yet. You know, at what point does she cut her losses and say, you know what? I know you've been trying and struggling and this and that, but like, dude, this has been going on for a long time. We've made very little progress. I think it's time that we take a break for you to really get the healing you need without me having to handhold you along the way. Like to me, it seems like you can't make up your mind, and I'm just tired of dragging this along. And I know there's no hard and fast answer. Like, well, after 45 days, cut them off, or after 2 dates, like, you know, when do you cut it off? And, you know, and I guess tied in with that, when do you even bring this up with a guy? Like, you know, because I get that question a lot. Like, okay, this isn't really like first date type of question stuff, but like, how long do I want to be in a relationship where I find out he's struggling with this? I mean, if it's our first date and we're sitting there and asking him, so what do you enjoy? Oh, I like mountain climbing. I'm this. Oh, that's nice. Are you a porn addict? You know, like, when do you drop the bomb to bring this up? And then when do you draw the line as to like, okay, if that's what you're into, no, thank you. And obviously, I think the sooner it's brought up, the better. I don't think you need to be in a relationship with a guy for 6 months before you bother to ask for this, because if he's a full-blown porn addict, does he have any business dating to begin with? I tend to argue no. You know, if this is something he's in the midst of struggling with and he's not making a lot of progress. But I know I throw a lot out at you there, but any practical guidelines you could give to a woman as to where to draw the line in the sand and say, enough's enough, we need to take a break and you need to get healing?
yeah, I would. I remember listening to, I think it was Matt Fradd, and it was either on his podcast or on Among the Lilies podcast, where he talks about like how to confront this and to not just be like, do you watch porn? Because the answer will probably be no when we're asked in that way. So he kind of goes into like how to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
I also think, well, I guess some people can definitely like um, hide it. Huh. I think it would be really good to have someone that's helping you along the way that gets it. Again, the support,
Yeah.
to not so much give you an answer, but to ask you good questions so that you can find the answer within yourself. Every case is, I guess, people decide on different things. Um, and if someone is really not making progress, it definitely is good to be in contact with married folk because they can kind of crack some myths that like, oh, it's just going to get better.
Yeah.
It doesn't get better.
Yeah.
Unless the person wants it to get better. So I think that would be helpful. And definitely that's a thought that I had a lot of. Like, am I supposed to just go now? But I guess thankfully, like we're both into wanting our healing, so that gives us a lot greater odds. But if someone's not working, yeah, I think the support would be very helpful. Because you're right, there is no like, if he's not doing anything for 3 months, then like peace out. And at the same time, as you're saying that, like, the sooner the better. The sooner you know, the better. And I think even if you're wondering and you don't know how to ask, I think it's good to just also get educated on like what that looks like. Because even someone like me that did technically know, I didn't know what that meant until like over the years figuring out like what that actually means. So in conclusion, definitely find a support group, find prayer, find, I guess, a space for that discernment to be peaceful rather than like, do I stay or do I go? Because it could be a very like panicky question, and there's a lot of ambivalence in this experience because you get one side of this person and sometimes a not so pleasant side. So you're kind of like in the middle. But yeah, I think education and prayer could be very helpful to discern like, how is this actually going, and like what is it that I want in a relationship, and is this person bringing that into my life or not? Yeah. Reasonable standards, not being like they got to be like perfect at everything before I can even consider, but like are we moving in an actual good direction? Is he someone that can bring God to my kids? Is he someone that cares about families? He's like, I guess these are things that are important for me. I can't really say for other people, but like those kind of things. So I think it is a discernment, and there aren't easy answers, but the answers are findable, if that's even a
Yeah, and and I throw out there, I think a common mistake people make in relationships is taking the relationship to a deeper level of commitment in hopes that that deeper investment will solve pre-existing problems. That maybe this is what we're lacking. We just need to go deeper into this. When in reality, what I would say is, if there's anything going on in the relationship that you're not willing to put up with for the rest of your natural life, then freeze or flee. Do not move forward. You need to at least stop the relationship of like, okay, we're not going any further in terms of emotional intimacy, spiritual intimacy, not until this is dealt with, because it's just pie in the sky to think that we'll get married and that thing's going to go away. If anything, the couples that I've talked to, it's worse unless it's really healed before marriage. Not just simply removed. It's one thing to like have that sobriety piece, but it's another thing to know how to deal with moments of boredom and stress and loneliness and all that without turning to porn for satisfaction. They say the opposite of addiction is not sobriety, it's human connection. Does the man know how to be humanly connected to his spiritual director, his family, his friends, his girlfriend, all this stuff? Or is porn the solace to his suffering? And if it is, then that's where he's going to keep turning. And so like you said, but helping a woman discern through that, a big piece is that community support. And so I kind of wanted to close on that. Along your journey, you said you're a very resourceful person. You found stuff along the way. You mentioned Bloom for Catholic Women. And I know you'd mentioned me in an email, they have a conference coming up. You'd mentioned there's this worldwide healing conference coming up. We've got Integrity Restored. Could you maybe share a little bit about those healing things coming up? And then if someone's listening to this recording years from now, where they can go to find the resources that you found helpful in validating your experience.
Cool. Yeah. I'm going to make a correction because Bloom for Catholic Women has courses and things, but I haven't found support groups.
Okay.
So I go to Bloom for Women, which is, I guess, just it's not the Catholic version of it. And yeah, they have that conference coming up on the 22nd to 23rd of October. And then there's the virtual Catholic Healing Conference that's coming up. I believe it's this weekend.
Okay.
And that will be in the show notes as far as...
I'll put them in the link below. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think searching things like betrayal trauma support, knowing that like it is help for betrayal trauma that you need, that you want help that is trauma informed, so they understand that it's not just like a forgive and forget, like you've experienced trauma here. And there's a credential. It's a group called APSATS, which is a credential, like a certification that counselors can get. And it is a credential that is focused on the partner. So they will know what betrayal trauma is, what you're going through, and things like that. So that's the Bloom for Women, and those are the retreats. There are a lot of great things, but the ones that I did mention a blog that has like descriptions of gaslighting and things. Mm-hmm. That's called Partner Hope. And it's a woman who is both a professional in this field, and she's gone through it herself. Her name is Michelle Mays. And you can literally go into the blog and just type in whatever you're looking for. And there's tons of really good, accurate information there that will help you at least give words to what you're going through. Yeah. So you can know what's going on. Yeah. There's this Dr. Jake Porter who is you can find he has his own, not ministry, but organization that helps both people in addiction and the partners. And he has a lot of great content. Even just on his Instagram, he really gets what the partner is going through. So I have found his content really helpful as well. Okay. There's just so many things, but knowing that it's betrayal trauma, that is what you hope to find healing from, is definitely a really good start. Yeah.
And I think that just the name itself is validating. Like, you've been betrayed. That's what happened. There was a loyalty, there was broken, trust was shattered, you were violated by this person's lack of loyalty to you. And the women, I think, like you had mentioned at the top, literally feel so alone. Like, you're going to church and you're there with like 500 other families and you're thinking like, I'm the one struggling with this. But like, if every woman on the world who's wrestling with this right now just became like, let's say they just became illuminated, like some lightning bug or whatever, I'm telling you, the earth would look like the sun. I mean, the whole planet would be ablaze with women going through this right now. And if you can just find each other and encourage each other, validate each other, smack each other upside the head if you need to, like whatever is needed to help wake each other up or hug each other or get each other through this, it's got to be done. So just know that, Yeah.
Which reminds me, there's also Facebook groups that you could join for betrayed partners, so that women literally from all over the world are connecting, and they're just like, "Hey, I'm going through this," which can sometimes be a little triggering to read everything. So just use with discretion. If it's too much, just don't read it.
Yeah.
If you need to, if you're reaching out for help, I've reached out for help many times there, and people are always answering.
Yeah.
And so the Fight for Love, same thing as like the book, the podcast. The ministry, like they have their own, Partner Hope has their own Facebook group. So there are Facebook groups where you can connect with other women.
Okay.
And that when you said like the light bugs, or not the light bugs, like just like lighting up and like finding each other, yes, like there is definitely a lot of room there for that. So yeah, and it would be awesome if we could like light up with like empowerment, and like as we move through this healing to rediscover like who we've always been this whole time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yes, that is my hope.
Yeah, it's just fantastically, hopefully relieving to women to realize you don't have to settle for this. This is not something that just needs to be the part of your life for the rest of your natural life. Like there's freedom that can be found, and that looks like different things in different people's situations. But what I'm going to do is I'll rewind and listen to this, and I'll listen to all those links that you just gave, and I'll find those websites, I'll find those blogs, I'll stick them in the show notes. It'll be a whole laundry list worth of stuff, for the listeners to go through, but they need that. And I think there's just going to be a lot of hope, a lot of encouragement, and God willing, a lot of healing. And so, Magdalena, I can't thank you enough just for your vulnerability and your honesty and your availability to be just a spokeswoman for all these women who don't have anybody to speak on their behalf. And so thank you so much. Is there any way that you would want people to know how to get a hold of you or read any stuff that you're up to, or is this good enough just to know that you spoke out?
That's so crazy that I'm of relevance, but I do have like a small Instagram page called Girlfriend Restored.
Okay.
And I hope that it is hopeful and encouraging, and validating. I created it specifically for girlfriends to connect with each other, but it seems like people who are married and not married are just following. So yeah, that's somewhere you can catch me. And if that sounded really weird, catch me, but yeah, just message me there. Seriously, like I am here for you, and I know how important it is to just have someone who like gets it. And like I would be honored to just be that person for you. So please don't think you're a burden of any kind. I would love to help to be part of your process of healing and finding who you've always been again.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I'll put the Instagram link below as well, so anybody can get connected with you if they want. And, for listeners, if today's show's been helpful to you and hopefully been a blessing to you, if you want to, like I had mentioned at the top, continue to support the program, you can do so at patreon.com/Jason Everett. And that just helps us to crank out more and more of these episodes. But Magdalena, thank you so much for your generosity. God bless you, and be assured of our prayers. And again, just thank you for being with us.
Thank you.